Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners work session for this Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. It is 2 p.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Vice Chair of the Board. Our Chair, Commissioner Mejia, will be joining us here in a few moments. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and we have our Thurston County Superintendents, school superintendents with us. We're really excited about getting updates from our schools. For virtual public attendance, follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We have an hour until 3 p.m. And County Manager, did you?
Oh, there's Carol.
Yeah, I can just probably get a little bit of feedback. This is a long time coming. Before the pandemic, we used to have periodic meetings with all of you, and that was very helpful, I believe, for the commissioners and I hope yourselves to hear where we are in the county, what your plans are, individual school districts. So personally looking forward to hear some updates. And again, if the time allows, I can give you some perspective related to this building, how we came to this particular location, what is next, what is happening on the courthouse campus, and perhaps what is happening in the future for the county, if that is the case.
First, let's just go around and just introduce yourself, because some of the new faces, and so start with you, Jennifer.
Yep, so I'm a new face. I'm Jennifer Bethman. I'm the new Rochester Superintendent.
Patrick Murphy, Olympia Superintendent.
Deb Clemens, North Thurston Public Schools.
Brian Barr, Rainier School District Superintendent.
Frank Wharton, Young Community Schools. Glenn Endicott, Savannah School District.
And it looks like Carol's online.
Carol, how about you?
Hi there, I'm Carol Meyer. I'm the interim superintendent in Tumwater.
Okay, great.
Gary Edwards, County Commissioner.
Yeah, well, we should we start? How do you want to start?
I didn't know how far we're
Maybe
supposed
we
to
can
take
start
this.
from,
Oh, let's start over there. Let me get some
Okay,
ideas
good-
from these guys.
good
and then
A lot of great things happening. I do want to thank the commissioners for their visibility and availability in helping our community navigate the now defunct Supreme Living situation. I think, we hosted 2 different community forums at the high school, and I think the community very much appreciates, and I know I do as a superintendent, appreciate your availability again and presence there in helping our community kind of navigate that challenging situation. So thank you for that. As a district, we're working hard on some comprehensive plan to address some of our aging facilities. So we're gonna be running a bond, hopefully somewhere around 2026. We'll pick up where our recently passed capital levy will end. And just working again through with the facilities planning committee to address some of the needs that we have. So the capital levy dollars that we have now are being used to keep systems online, try and put us in a position where we don't have kids showing up and there's no heat in the building, which has happened a couple times within this last year. And so that's kind of like big picture what we're working on. And then just academically, we're really pleased with some of the results that we're seeing with some interim assessments across the board. I mean, we've heard plenty about some of the learning loss that took place, but I think we've made some great strides in addressing that as a district.
I do have a quick question. You have a nice solar panels in some of your facilities. How's that working out for you in terms of energy savings? Do you have a perspective on that?
I don't have any specific data around that. We do have a solar array at the high school.
Right.
Spell out THS, and that was part of a grant that we were working with, I believe it's Community Energy Labs. But that work's on hold right now because we're dealing with some of the infrastructure issues that are kind of trumping some of our work around the solar array. But,
How long have you had that?
I want to say somewhere around 6 years now.
I'll say that,
Any other questions? You guys, I don't know how often you guys meet together.
We meet often.
Often, okay, so you probably know all the questions. Go ahead, Brian.
I want to start off with 2 thank yous. One is thank you for the assistance that the county gave in the construction of Southworth Elementary School that opened up last fall. That was a big project, and it's a beautiful school, turned out great. And the second thank you is in our district, we've been working on identifying difficult sidewalks or crosswalks where They're not marked or not lit, and installing crossing beacons, and the county did a great job of helping us put one near Ridgeline Middle School across Highway 507, and that's probably the worst crosswalk in our district. We'll continue to identify those. We're putting in 11 sets of crosswalk beacons within our boundaries. Some of that, most of that is within the city of Yelm city limits, but that's a big portion of our work right now. We're just coming to the end of our major bond program, about $126 million of construction that is coming to a close. And we're doing small projects with some residual funds that we have. Get a little COVID benefit from being able to continue to construct schools while we were shut down. Lots of great things happening in Yelm. We're starting to grow. Our enrollment came back just a little bit. We probably get 70% of our students back that we lost during COVID. Hopefully that'll continue into our kindergarten class next year again. Other than that, things are going quite well. We're happy. And you'll tell me if if I'm not telling you.
No short timer stuff or?
Short timer.
Talking about it.
Is any in the process of finding your replacement, or is gonna be waiting until after your leave?
We're in the recruiting phase right now,
Okay.
so the application process is underway through March. And so it'll conclude shortly after spring break. Sounds like it's going really well.
Are you going a national search or local or what?
I would say more regional is
Okay.
an accurate statement. West Coast, it appears that there's some interest, West Coast area, but mostly local.
So in Rainier, we just completed a building assessment on all of our buildings. And we are looking at running a bond probably in 4 years. And we have some things that we really need to look at. We have about $54 million of upgrades we need to do to be efficient. And so our board is looking at the best ways of doing that. We've spent a lot of time this year working with the community, getting the community more involved again back into the schools, like because of the pandemic, they weren't really able to come in. So we have been working with our retirement community, and they've been coming, they came into a lunch, we had a big lunch, and they all came, and I took a bunch of kids over to the retirement center, and they had lunch with all the retirees. And so we're really trying to build that back, that community spirit with the school, because really in Rainier, the school is the main focus of the whole community, and just trying to get that back going. And so we're excited about that, and things are going well. Our budgets are good. We're not having to lay anybody off, and so we're just gonna keep moving forward, hopefully. So, yeah, it's good place.
Commissioner Mejia has joined us there, so just for everyone's knowledge, any questions on Rainier? Brown?
Are you working on the roof first?
Which one?
At the school? I mean,
Well, the high school is the one that needs the most of the work.
Yeah.
And we did get a small modernization grant from the small schools. It's about $340,000, and so we are working on our controls for our heat and HVAC, so it'll be good.
Any budget related concerns into the future? I know the Olympia has some, but
We think we're okay. We think we're gonna be, our enrollment is above our budget, and so we've been very fortunate, so.
All right, North Thurston,
All right.
always lots going on in North Thurston.
Yeah, so first, want to start also with a thank you. I think on behalf of all of us, Dr. A has really been a helpful professional in meeting with us throughout the pandemic on a very regular basis. We had those meetings scheduled weekly, and I think it provided us the reassurance that we needed about the process that we went through for reopening our schools. And so I just want to say thank you, because I think her guidance helped all of us as a county navigate a really challenging time. And she continues to meet with us once every 2 weeks right now, and again, it's been helpful. I guess I'll stay with some of the same themes that we've been talking about, and that would be capital construction. In North Thurston, we passed a $275 million bond in 2020. And as with most bonds, after you pass, people expect to see construction happen immediately, but you really have to go through some pretty thorough planning in order to use those dollars and be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So this past year, we started construction at River Ridge High School, and it's probably from beginning to end about a 5-year project staged out over several years. Major construction happening this summer. We're gonna close down the entire site. We're bringing in 34 portable classrooms. If you're familiar with that campus, it has separate buildings. So we're going to be moving the administrative building and then bring portables in that will be most of the classroom spaces, and then demolish a couple of the buildings in order to create a large academic wing with a central commons area. So when the project is complete, it will feel a lot more like both North Thurston High School and Timberline High School, in that it's one building with a main entrance and a big commons area and a beautiful library area. If you drive down College Street, you may have noticed the construction happening at Camachin Middle School. And so phase 1 was completed. Staff were very happy to move into brand new offices, just like you probably had your staff moving into this facility and enjoying a nicer space to work. Secure entrances has been accomplished at that site at Camachin. Most schools that go through construction today are designed to have a secure entrance. And so that part of the facility is working quite well. Brand new library moved to the front of the building, much more natural light like you can experience in this space within that library. Brand new renovated music rooms, art rooms, and just moving into the commons area now for lunch again. Our nutrition services was working out of a both tent area and a gym space during construction. So our capital construction projects are happening while students are on our campus, which is very complicated, but also something that our construction and design department is used to. When we had the modernization of North Thurston High School, that would just be an example of continuing to have school going on while phasing the construction of certain parts of the building. The nice thing is that as a phase is completed, people move into that new space and they already see the impact of a brand new facility. Most of our schools are going to have a secure entrance as part of the 2020 bond. So, but a lot of the schools were built way before a time where you had to have a secure entrance. So having to come in and kind of retrofit a more secure entrance, while not doing so much major construction to a school that you're investing in an older style of school when that school may be ready for modernization in the near future. So it's kind of that balancing act of how do we create a more secure entrance without spending like way more money than we should invest in an older facility. You probably know that schools qualify for some state construction match dollars after they hit a certain age. So that's really when you want to ask the local community to support a construction project for those facilities. So it's just balancing that out. We do have legislative priorities, and maybe we'll talk about that later after we all get done giving a briefing. But to overall budget, we're doing okay. I think as most districts, when you have had some enrollment fluctuation throughout the pandemic, you're right-sizing your staff for your students. We do have large numbers in the elementary schools. In North Thurston, we continue to experience growth within certain grade levels. And right now, all three of our high schools, the comprehensive high schools, are about the same size, which is really nice for programming. We implemented a boundary change in 2016, and we're in the process of looking at possibly doing a boundary change going into next year. That committee will finish up their work in May. And that, you know, we can't have some schools underutilized and other schools packed and not able to, you know, have the same programming. So high schools, we're looking really good. Middle school, we have some that are a little bit smaller, and elementary is where there's the most impact. In our district, we really have an elementary neighborhood model. So we want students within a close walking distance to attend the elementary school. For some reason, during the pandemic, we just had a shift in enrollment that's negatively impacted a few of our schools where they're just getting too small. And you have to maintain efficiencies in terms of when you have a smaller school, you still need a principal, still need a secretary, still need custodial, but you don't have those efficiencies when you're more right-sized with other schools in your district. So we have that work going on, but we've been through it before, and we've got a good process in place. There's one thing that we've noticed coming out of remote learning and back, like last year was so disrupted because of Omicron and the COVID just really impacting attendance and both on staff and students. We had lots of bus routes that were canceled last year. We haven't had any of that this year.
Oh,
This
that's
year, we have, even though we've had illness, we have been able to come back to school and maintain our staffing levels in terms of substitute teachers and all of that. Much more stable, feels way more normal this whole year. And participation of students in activities and athletics is through the roof. I think in our community, when students no longer had the opportunity to do something, there was a recognition of how precious it was. So we've had huge turnout for everything from basketball and wrestling to clubs. We have, you know, over 100 kids in Interact, which is the kind of the high school version of Rotary. So that's been really exciting to see, that just the enthusiasm of students coming back and being able to participate. Good afternoon. And athletics and activities, and being able to have the stability of school every day, not having canceled buses, all of that. So things are feeling really good.
A quick question on the construction bond.
Yes.
Yeah, when the voters approved that, you obviously had an estimate as to how much each construction project
Right.
will cost.
Right.
Construction inflation has been through the roof and affecting us all around us. How that has affected you in terms of delivering those projects the voters approved?
We're doing okay. I say that, we have another project that's going out to bid soon, but every project has come in within our estimate of what we expected. When we built out the bond, knowing that it actually will be completed over an 8-year period of time, we built in the
Escalation.
acceleration. And so far, we've been doing okay. We also try to really price our projects so that local contractors can bid on them. And I think that also, you know, not only benefits the immediate community, I think the competition here is slightly different than what we're seeing maybe a little bit further north. So, so far, we've been doing okay. We have had, our construction and design director has talked about some pretty significant supply chain disruptions. As an example, at Camachin, you have these huge HVAC systems that actually have to go up on the roof. Well, you can't complete the construction until you get that piece of equipment up there, and then that's the equipment that's delayed. So it can throw off a whole project. So those are kinds of the complexities of what we've experienced. We put in a brand new field at Camachin, and we couldn't get the soil. There wasn't enough. I don't know exactly what contributed to that. I think it had to do with cement use, you know, creation in other areas, but we finally did get it put in, and it looks like it'll be a great playable field this fall. But the kind of disruption that we're just not used to having to navigate. These projects are complex to begin with when you have students on site and you're phasing the construction projects. And then when you add in the supply chain issues, it really gets pretty complicated. But so far, is this wood? We've been doing okay.
As far as we know.
Yeah, I don't think it is. It looks like wood.
How are you coming on your community center?
The Young Child and Family Center. So I do have a handout on that, that the Y produced. I can, if you want to pass this over to the commissioners. So we've been meeting regularly with the Y, the City of Lacey, Timberland Regional Library, the EDC, the Chamber, and we're pretty excited about this project. For the school district, we will need to run a capital levy in February of 2024 to fund the classroom parts of this project. The partner organizations are really responsible for the fundraising on the recreational parts of this project. So right now, we have a line item in the capital state budget request for all of the architectural services to get going on the design of the project. We also are putting, actually just yesterday, we submitted to Senator Murray's office a request also for the architectural services, because the architectural and engineering services alone is about 6.2 million for this project. So we know that we're gonna have to fund it through a variety of sources. But we just had a meeting yesterday and we're continuing to go through and look at everything from Department of Defense funding that may come through with JBLM support for early learning. It'll definitely be a puzzle to put together, especially for both the City of Lacey and the Y to do the recreational part. For us, we already have constructed 3 early learning centers in our district that reside on the campuses of elementary schools. So we're ready to go with that request to our community next February. But yeah, it's a pretty exciting project. So hopefully the community will see that as well.
Is there a spot for that's been
Yes. So the old Bucknell Fields.
Oh, yeah.
So where Nisqually Middle School is, we already own that property. It was valued at like 4.2 million, so we already have that. When you're going and seeking support from both state and federal, they're like, okay, what's your timeline? What do you currently have? How are you gonna fund this? We already have the property. It's a great location for an early learning center. And it would serve, and you probably know this really well, there are so many families that are struggling to find adequate preschool programming and childcare for their children. This early learning center would serve 4 and 5-year-olds, possibly 3-year-olds if they're identified for services that we provide. About 600 children would be served through this site if we're able to make that happen. And I think we have to change the mindset that early learning is going to be solved by really small businesses. A lot of those businesses have really struggled. Many closed when the pandemic hit. And we have over 50% of the children that enroll in kindergarten have never had access to preschool programming in North Thurston. And it's probably very similar across our districts.
I think the last time we met was, and it might have been, I remember the two of you guys presenting about the scheduling shift, and you'd done some surveys and you were
Calendar.
Year-round school.
changing the calendar, and where did that all land?
I think, I want to stop
That's still-
talking and let pass on, but I think both of us completed a study and we're both in a little bit of a holding pattern at this point.
So we can transition to Olympia.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can I ask a
Go.
question from North Thurston? Last year, there was a lot of kind of community input into what was happening in one of your high schools with one of the Black student unions. And I'm wondering, how has that progressed over the year? now that you've had kind of this time to establish that relationship, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think we've done really great work in our district around the topic of equity, both in terms of professional development for our staff and opportunities for our families and for our students. Last night, we had a multicultural community cafe. We had wonderful attendance. We previously, about 3 weeks ago, we had a community cafe primarily focused for members of our parent community and community who identify as Black. We had 150, I think, people participate. So I feel like there's been a lot of outreach on the part of the district, as well as continuing to strengthen all of the programming that we provide, not just at a high school, but across the whole district. Twin Star Credit Union sponsored the one book per elementary school that introduces a variety of stories from children from a variety of cultures. That's been really well received across the district. So I think there's been a lot of listening and learning and moving forward in many ways. And the Black Student Union is doing really well at River Ridge. They annually plan for the MLK Assembly and other activities, and I think it's going quite well. If you would ever like to come and visit, just let us know. Be happy to connect you with the principal and staff there.
Thank you so much.
I've been to their Juneteenth
Yeah.
events, but I haven't done the MLK.
Yeah.
Well, overall, I'd say there's lots of really great things happening in the Olympia School District in our schools. It's just great to not have the disruption that Deb was talking about last year with sort of the COVID hangover and the absence rate of staff and students, just a lot of that stuff being in the rearview mirror and just being out in our schools. There's just great things happening there. I was out at McKinney Elementary School today, walking into some literacy lessons with kids. I was at Roosevelt Elementary yesterday. I mean, it's just great stuff. The sports and activities, kids are doing great things. We're winning state titles. You know, our music programs are doing great. I mean, Olympia School District is a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful place to work. It's a wonderful place to serve in. And so I think that is the most important thing. Equity has always been the focus of our board and myself. I mean, that is the work. And as we change our system to better serve all the families that we serve, we're gonna be better because of it, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And I think, you know, we've talked about some of these numbers before. About 94% of our staff are white, middle class, about 70% women. Last check, a little over 40% of our students identify as students of color. And as we talk about our curriculum, the staff in front of our kids, the scope and sequence of what we teach, there's pushback. You know, there's people that are saying, wait a minute, that's not what I learned when I was in school. And I think what we're, you know, working our way through is by ensuring that everybody is recognized and celebrated, it's not diminishing somebody else. It's like recognizing things that were not done properly in the past. And so, you know, we're doing a lot of work in that regard that, you know, we could probably spend days talking about. In terms of our building bonds, we're at the tail end of our last building bond. Our last project is finishing up Avanti High School, which is the old district office. It's right there on Legion Way there, I think. And that building was built in 1922 during the Harding administration. So it's over 100 years
Remember that,
old.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I do. It was a new school in my day.
Gary, it actually used to be, I think, Washington School.
Yeah, Washington Middle School.
Yeah,
used
way
to be
back
there.
in the day.
It's a beautiful building.
But when you're doing retrofitting in a building like that,
Yeah.
it's super expensive and, you know, but it's also a historical place and you want to do it well. And we're gonna move our transition program for 18 to 21-year-olds in the special education program. Was also gonna be in that building along with Avanti. So we're getting that done, and we'll be done with that building bond. But unlike some other places, enrollment is down in Olympia. Since our high water mark of 2019-20, our enrollment's down about 740 kids. And the way I've said to kind of give people perspective on what that means, well, money-wise, it's about $10 million a year. But in terms of schools, Boston Harbor, McKinney, and Madison is about 740 kids. That's 3 of our schools. So historically, when I was hired in the Olympia School District 6 years ago, the first text message I received was congratulations, and the second text message I received was don't touch their small schools, they love them. And I'm in year 6, and what I have learned is I don't believe that people in Olympia love their small schools. What I believe is they love their schools, period. We have one of the smallest elementary schools in the region at Boston Harbor, and we have the largest school in all of Thurston County in Olympia High School, and they love them both. So I don't really think it's about the size, I think it's about the people that are in those buildings, but like Deb and others were saying, elementary schools are about neighborhood. And so we are just launching into this conversation about that efficiency model when it comes to schools. It is much more expensive to have a principal at a school with 180 kids than it is for a school with 500. And if your enrollment was going up, you might be able to withstand that and maybe do some things. But our board has charged me with doing a deeper dive into are there some efficiencies that we can get? Because we've all, from year to year to year, and people long before us, have had to deal with the push and pull and the whipsaw effect of the legislative sessions year after year. Are you gonna get money for this? Are you not gonna get money for that? And when you have small schools, it makes it really, really hard to withstand that type of back and forth. When you lose a little bit of your staffing at a big school district like Olympia High School, you can absorb that. You can do that in a way where you don't feel it that much. You lose a little bit of staffing at a little tiny school, it can be pretty catastrophic. So we'll talk more about legislative priorities, but in addition to enrollment, the other 2 things that are happening that are driving the budget deficit that was referred to in Olympia is the fall off of the federal relief dollars. So one of the things that was a silver lining of the pandemic was in March of 2020, when we closed schools on March 13th, when the governor made the announcement. It was a Friday the 13th, by the way. We were looking at about an $8 million deficit that year in the Olympia School District, because the McCleary decision didn't help most school districts in North, I'd say it didn't help any of us. We would have been better off if they would have left it the way it was. But once we closed schools, we immediately started saving money. We weren't running buses, we weren't doing sports, we weren't getting subs, we weren't using all the utilities and the fuel. And then shortly thereafter, federal dollars started coming in through emergency relief funds. And we got around $15 to $16 million in the Olympia School District. We were spending $5 to $6 million a year. And we used that to fund positions that we believe were needed before the pandemic. We funded physical health positions, healthcare room assistants, nurses, because we've talked about this before, I think, with this group, how few nurses are funded by the state. But we also funded social workers, we funded family liaisons at all of our elementary schools to help families in crisis. We used some of that money to lower class sizes, some administrative support. That's all going away. We expect our ESSER dollars to be completely depleted or just about by the end of this school year. So enrollment's down, that federal money's going away, and then lastly, like I mentioned, the McCleary decision is coming home to roost. So those 3 things in general are what's contributing to what we're predicting right now is around a $17 million budget deficit in a $170 million operating budget. That's about 10%. I suspect that will go down. And the reason why I suspect that will go down is because I think we're gonna underspend throughout the rest of the year, so I think we'll carry more over. I also think as we right-size the district to, for our new enrollment, because we're gonna be down about 135 more students next year, we project. That'll lower some of our expenditures. But any way you slice it, it's still gonna be a significant deficit that we're probably going to be bringing our school board a reduction in force plan. And that first reading will be at the second board meeting in March, and they'll approve it probably at the first and only board meeting that we have in April. And again, a lot of that's enrollment driven, but some of these other things are contributing to that as well.
Sure, yeah, so you're-
Yeah, I found out that all of this was going on because I got a lot of calls. Boston Harbor's in my district, so there was one afternoon where I just started receiving calls after calls in regards to this and their concern about that school closing, and they made a lot of good points. Obviously, I do not envy the position that your board is in, that your staff is in. And I have a question about the figures that you're giving us, right? You know, it's a 17 million deficit. It's 740 kids, and you're projecting that it's gonna be 135, an additional 135.
That's part of that 740.
Okay, that's part of that 700. Okay, I was just like, well, that's gonna
Yep.
ramp it up to 800. So with that 740, I'm wondering kind of where that drop off came from.
Yeah, the enrollment decline in Olympia, and I think it's pretty similar to places that are experiencing enrollment decline in our region and across the state, is at the lowest grade levels. It's at kindergarten, it's at first grade, it's at second grade. We have average cohorts in the Olympia School District in kindergarten since I've been here around 700. Last year, our kindergarten cohort was about 530. And the one before that wasn't much higher than that. So that whole idea that we thought that kids were going to bounce back after COVID, and the state actually helped us with some hold harmless dollars based on our previous enrollment, we're not seeing that bounce back. Now, I think that we've seen data, I think some county data, that birth rates are down, right? But that takes a while to get to that kindergarten age. We also know the cost of housing in Olympia is pretty expensive for young families to move in and start. So there's probably a number of things that are contributing to that. I also believe, this is just a theory that I have, that the changing economy is contributing to that people are staying home and not commuting to work, and they're keeping their young kids home. Compulsory attendance in Washington isn't compelled until the age of 8. So there are a number of factors that probably there will be some demographers that will be doing some studies and trying to determine this, but it's not in any particular region, it's across the board at those younger grade levels. The one places where we have seen a little bit of increase is on the west side of the district in the McLean, Marshall attendance area.
You've seen
A little bit of an increase in enrollment. Like, we don't expect McLean to go down next year at the elementary school level. And that's our furthest western side of our district.
Hanson's going down. according to who teaches there.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hanson is more, you know, they have a catchment area that's more in the western sort of urban part, and McLean's more out on the outside. Yeah.
Like out at Boston Harbor, for an example, are you experiencing the same thing out in the rural settings that you are?
Boston Harbor has actually been fairly steady. When I first got here, Boston Harbor, I think probably had about 140 kids 6 years ago. They're up to about 180 kids now. You know, and percentage-wise, that's a pretty good increase for a school that small. It's just small. And I think that obviously, you know, I've received emails and lots of calls too. We've had a lot of informal conversation about this leading up to, but it wasn't until our last board meeting last Thursday that the board formally said, we want you, superintendent, to look at this. I've worked in enough school districts where we've done different things around school consolidation, or I've talked to other superintendents, and the actual closure of the school right off the bat saves you a little bit of money from what we talked about, but really it's the long-term impact that really gives superintendents and future school boards more flexibility. When you have schools that are closer to that prototypical size, because you don't have to make, it's just harder to get the resources to the kids that they need in a smaller setting.
So what is the right size of those schools that achieves efficiencies?
Well, in the state model, the prototypical size is 400, I think, for an elementary school. But that's just how they fund. That's not necessarily them saying this is the ideal size for a school. There are people out there that would say closer to 500 is a good size for an elementary school. And it all depends on the facility, right? If you build the facility to hold it and you've got the right spaces, the key is the number of sections that you offer at each grade level. So,
And your specialists.
and your music and your art and things like that.
How do you make sure that everyone has the opportunity to access those specialists? You get too big and all of a sudden you need more than one FTE to provide that.
Or you're too small, and
And
so
then
you've
you're
only got like a
paying
a
travel
0.2 or a 0.3 person that you need in that place, so they gotta travel. So you're actually paying people not to actually teach, because they have to travel to get places.
Is there a little bit of urban flight going on?
I think it's more, what's affordable housing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
in
that
terms
could be
of-
driving it. I think it's expensive, more expensive. I mean, the homes around Roosevelt Elementary School right now are like, when I first got here, they were really cheap. They're not cheap right now. Things are getting more and more expensive. So are people leaving to go find a less expensive place to buy their first home? I think that's absolutely happening. But our middle school and high school enrollment's very good, right? It wasn't like flight, like people were leaving the city. I mean, it's those younger families that are coming in. Olympia High School came in over projections. And our middle schools came in right about where they need to be. It's just that lower number that's coming up that's very concerning.
There's a lot of construction in Yelm, and we're not getting any kids out of it. A lot of it's being sold to corporations for temporary housing. A lot of apartments being built, they're not filling up. A couple of developments that are on hold, they started, but now are holding. So we're not seeing that flight, even though the capacity for more families to move in is there. Prices are too high.
How old was that building you guys redid out at Rainier?
100.
Wasn't it? Huh?
100 years.
Yeah, 100 years old. I think that brought community together.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's not actively maybe as the school, but it's the headquarters of the school, and it brings a certain amount of pride to the community.
Neat building.
And I don't know, I think some of your inner schools, I mean, we see it up in King County, you know, what's going on too. I think parents of those younger kids are worried about what they're exposed to. I can't, you know, I mean, I really do. I think that's part of the problem. Myself, as a grandpa, a kid, you know, kids, grandpa, great-grandkids, all that kind of stuff, so.
I was speaking to school leaders up in the Bellevue School District yesterday. And, you know, on most US News and World Report rankings, I think the Bellevue School District has 4 or 5 high schools in there in the top 100, 3 in the top 10. I mean, I used to work in the Issaquah School District. We competed with Bellevue. It is a place to be. It is where you go if you want, you know, a really high-quality education to go off to the university of your choice. It's actually a majority, minority, and I hate that term, district, but it's got less than 50% white students, has a very large Asian population, and they are closing 3 elementary schools. Yep, and it is a big deal, and Seattle's gonna be closing a lot more than that pretty soon. And I think it has a lot to do with cost.
Can I ask you the number? You said 90, very big top of your, you said 94% of your staff is white, and then you said certain percent of students.
Just over 40,
Is by,
just over 40% identify as students of color.
I didn't miss that number. Yeah, because we've seen that number, like countywide, it's 29%, but you know, it's adults and so
Yeah,
that shows.
and that number, the percentages are higher at the lower grade levels. So we're becoming more diverse when younger families do come into our area.
Should we go to Rochester?
All right.
Still got Tumwater to get to.
So I'm Jennifer Bethman, I'm from Rochester. And first of all, thanks for having us here today. It's nice to be able to come and talk. I will, you know, reiterate what many people have already said, which is it's so good to be back to what is quote unquote normal again. Our kids are back, they're learning, we're seeing growth in their learning, which is really exciting. The kids are excited to be there, the kids are excited to be there. We talked about kids being engaged in the extracurricular activities. That's the same thing we're seeing in Rochester. It's 60 kids turn out for volleyball, 60 of our girls at the middle school level. So, and that's just unheard of. We never had that before. So the kids want to be out and they want to be engaged, and they're showing up and they're starting new clubs that we never would have thought of, and we're saying yes. You know, I think we're back to having a chess club before, which it's been years since we've had a chess club.
I used to be in a chess club.
Yeah. So there's good things happening and it's just a really good feel. Rochester is changing. We are at just over 2,100 students this year. Before COVID, we were just over 22,000 or 2,200 students. We came in about 100 kids over projection. So that's a good thing, right? We had projected about 2,000, but we are still in a place where we're deficit spending. So we need to write our budget, and that's what we're working on now. But going back to Rochester's changing, 30% of our population now are Latino students. And so we're really working to make sure we're providing services that all of our families need in an equitable manner. Part of that is starting to do a language program. So we'll be starting to do a language program at the elementary with our kindergartners in the fall. It's been done in a lot of schools, throughout the area, but we're excited to be starting it in Rochester now, and our families are excited about it. And we have some teachers that are very excited about it. It does bring some staffing challenges, because as we implement a dual language program, we need teachers who can, it'll be Spanish, so who can speak Spanish and take us all the way through. It's nice we start small, and so we can build on that, but we're very excited about that. The budget reductions, like I said, we talked about, we had the federal relief dollars that really kind of carried us through. Once the pandemic hit, and now that those federal relief dollars are going away, Rochester is in a place where we are making some serious decisions about what we are not going to be having what we will not be able to fund next year. Going through a great process to do it. I've got 40 community members, different stakeholders are coming and sitting down and having conversations about it. So it's really good to see they're willing to come in. We're having some great conversations. They're really appreciative of the process that we're taking to talk about our budget. But the sad thing is, it's gonna mean we don't have everything for kids that we have this year, next year. Let's see, we had a levy or a bond that failed right before the levy, right before COVID. So in February of 2020, it just barely failed. It was 59%. So it just needed that, and it wasn't even 59%, it was 59 point something. So it was really devastating. That would have paid for modernization of the high school, which is really, really needed. The high school has as many portables outside and back of the building as it does classrooms inside the building, and the building is just very dated. Needs repairs all over the place. When we talk about a secured entry, it does not have a secured entry. None of the buildings in Rochester do, and we're actually working on using our capital funds to make those changes to buildings. But even with making a secured entry, it's still a building that has a lot of needs. And our staff, they do the best they can in there, and the kids do a great job learning, right? But I know they could benefit from different resources, and their education would be stronger and more equitable to other places in our county if we had a new high school, or an updated high school, I should say. So that's one of the things, with the high school having as many classrooms and portables as we do in the building, we also have an elementary school that's in the same situation. So our buildings are very, very full. Like I said, we are putting secure entrances in all of our buildings, so we've got that money is coming from our capital budget. And we are gonna make the changes to our buildings, because right now it is very easy to walk into our buildings. That was a board priority, was making sure that we changed our entrances. And we're also looking to buy some land, because the area is starting to pop out there, and we know we need land for an elementary school. And so looking at where that might be, we do own some land up on the hill to the south of the district office, but it's not really ideal for a school. So it might be something that's there to barter, to sell, and then buy land somewhere else. But the options out there are getting slim within the district. So something we gotta get moving on quickly. We also, I don't know how much you're out in that area, but there's the old gym is part of the old primary school. You know what I'm talking about, Ty? The building that's in back. That structure, the old gym structure, is part of now the district office and our Boys and Girls Club. And the roof is just deteriorating on the building. It has a tarp on half of it, the rest of it, it's coming off. Had a structural engineer come out and look at the building. They say the building is very, very sound. It's from, I think the thirties is the date, 1930s. But it needs a new roof, so.
I was in the second grade.
Hoover administration.
Yeah. So we're working on that. We have, and we are working with the Boys and Girls Club, and we've submitted a request for local community program to Senator McEwen for some funds to do the roof to that building. But it was a pleasant surprise when I learned just a couple days ago about what it would cost to remove the tiles that are asbestos tiles in the building, so the abatement. And it was only gonna be about $18,000 to do that, which I said a lot of money, but I was expecting it to be far more than that. So now we're looking at, can that facility become used to a greater extent again, maybe in the community? It's right attached to the park that is kind of co-facilitated with the county and the district. So I'm just looking at options for that, and the reduced price of getting that done made it something to start thinking about. Other than that, that's all I have.
How much
Just-
was your roof gonna be?
The roof is gonna be, I think the quote came in at $73,000. I was surprised at that too.
Yeah, that's not
We
so
had
bad.
bets on the table and mine was up, closer to 200,000. So I was really glad.
Do you have an Eastern European, still part of Rochester? There's Russians down there before.
Scandinavians, so there's Swede Hall, that there's,
Used to be a little Russian
Community?
community.
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, goes back a few years.
Let's go to Tumwater. Last but not least.
Hi, everyone. I could probably say ditto to almost all the things my colleagues have said. We have a facilities advisory committee that's working on whether or not we need to go out for a bond in 2024 for elementary number 7. And in meeting with Mel Murray, our capital projects guy, we're a little bit hesitant. Maybe we're looking at 2025 right now. We're not entirely sure. We just finished our Moody's surveillance and we were downgraded by 1 level in our ratings. We went from a AA2 to a AA3. And a lot of, again, what I think Patrick was talking about with the McCleary decision, we ended up you probably are more aware than I, in 2017 in a strike and settling contracts high. And so we're now working on readjusting our fund balance policy and doing a little uptick in that, hopefully soon. Last year, prior to my time, I'm the interim superintendent. Last year, they had to shave off about just a little over 4 million in the Tumwater School District budget. They were able to do that without riffing, and this year we're not looking at riffing, but we did come in under our projections. We've averaged between 60 and 80 students, which we're grateful for, considering our neighboring districts came in with a lot more kids that didn't show up to school. But that puts us in a position to staff the buildings in the fall next year. We're going to be more conservative. We're going to staff at 98%. And we're just right now in the throes of figuring all that out. So with that being said, we do anticipate some growth in our area. We have some apartment complexes, some housing areas, but when I met with Mel today, said the one that's just coming to a close, a big housing project, was actually started in 2003. So 20 years later, that project has come to pass, and I don't know that we haven't really increased significantly in terms of our enrollment over that time. So we can't bank on kids we don't have. So I think that, a lot of the things my colleagues have talked about, staffing or security entrances at each building. We've done safety walks at all of our buildings. There's a lot of things like that need to happen. And we are moving our Links program, which is our 18 to 21-year-old life skills students, to a brand new facility that's being built just outside of the, just here by the district office. And that'll be a new portable, and a new kind of portable. It's expected to last a lot longer years than the other types of portables we have purchased in the past, and that will open in August.
Questions for Tumwater? No? I had a question. So it's interesting in the ways in which our business comes before, interacts with schools sometimes. We had a project that was proposed in the Tumwater UGA, which initially the city of Tumwater said, we're not interested in supporting that. Then later they supplemented that and said, well, the school might be looking to cite a school there, and if they did, then it would be something we might support, because you guys would bring sewer and water down, that would help the school get going, and there's new housing going down there. And so I was trying to juggle all that, and I guess I'm wondering, is this the school, your elementary school number 7 you're talking about, or is this something that you've
Well, if
already
it's in
decided to do?
yeah, if it's on the property that we have that's by Black Hills High School. Is
No,
that
this
the
is
area you're talking
93rd,
about?
93rd and Old 99.
Oh, not
Commercial development
100%
would be
sure
right on
about
the
that
corner, but they were
property.
saying that there was gonna be a potential school site right next to that on 93rd.
I don't, I'm new to the area and I'm not entirely sure. We have a potential site for elementary 7 and elementary 8. So I apologize. I don't know the exact street address for either one of those.
Okay, well, I was just curious. I mean, in terms of how speculative that was versus you
Yeah.
asked to make a very specific decision based on something Tumwater School
Sure.
District might do.
I would be happy to get back to you on the 2 properties that we have, the addresses, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great.
Anything else? You guys want to talk about legislative? I heard a couple of you. Do you want to?
Well, I mean, the one thing that we've all really talked a lot about, that the legislature said this go around was gonna be a priority for them, was special education funding. So we all talked about the McCleary decision, how it really didn't help us here in Thurston County. And they really avoided addressing the special education funding issues when they did the McCleary decision. So they've kind of made a commitment this legislative session that they would address special education funding. And Superintendent Rakedahl fairly recently said that problem statewide is about $1 billion problem. And the legislation that is being proposed to address that nearly $1 billion problem is dramatically less than that.
Is that bill number?
5311.
Yeah, there's, the Senate bill is the preferred bill, yet they cut all the funding out of it. And so we're hoping for end of budget solutions. It's the 3rd bullet on the North Thurston legislative priorities. Right now, districts are capped at 13.5%, and our, I think the Senate bill is at 15%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also, funding is, we receive it as a tiered multiplier, and not to get too complicated about it, but what it currently costs us and the number of students that we're serving is far above what the state funds. So for us, our local levy pays about 10 million of the cost to provide basic education to students who qualify for special education services.
We're about the same. We're just under 10 million in Olympia. So the way that cap works is if we have 10,000 kids in the Olympia School District, they'll fund up to 13.5% that are receiving special education services. So that's 1,350 kids. But in K-12, we have 16% of our kids receiving special education services. So there's 250 kids that aren't being paid for. And so that's when we go into our local enrichment levy to pay for that, which I don't think is constitutional. It's probably a civil rights violation in some way. So I think that they're worried about it. I think they should be. And if they fully funded special education, I think it would take care of a massive amount of the
I think it'd
problems
help
that
every
we've
one
had.
of us.
Absolutely.
Right, could I weigh in on that? In Tumwater, we are at 15.5% students with IEPs. We're only funded for 13.5, as my colleagues stated. And for us, that's a $2.2 million local levy funded shortfall. And I think someone said it, I don't think that's legal, that we're actually using local levy dollars. The cap makes 0 sense. It's not like we're over identifying students with special needs. And we're required to meet all of the aspects of the IEP, the individualized education plan for each of those students, which can sometimes be really extensive. And we're not meeting the civil rights of our student as a state.
And I don't think there's one of us here who aren't using local levy funds to.
And 2.8 million a year out of our levy, that's 23% of our levy. So.
And the 10 million that we're using out of the local levy is after we file for what's called safety net. So all of us, I believe, file for safety net. It's where we have to complete a special application to receive the funding for students that cost more than what the state provides. So we're actively going after those dollars to get that reimbursement, and we still are tapping into the
And
levy.
that safety net application takes hours.
Safety net number in Yelm is almost $800,000, and we apply for it and we get it at the end of the year, so it creates a significant cash flow problem as well.
It's a reimbursement basis.
Get up front to get it back later. We're serving multiple students in other states, and that's the bulk of our safety
It costs a
net.
lot more than what the multiplier provides. So the multiplier gives us maybe double what the apportionment would be for a regular education kid, but in some cases it's 3, 4, 5 times that cost. So it doesn't pay for it. So they gotta end the cap, increase the multiplier, and the original bill that came out of the House was basically gonna do it. They're kind of calling it the House bill, the original House bill.
The house.
Before it got completely gutted, that was great. And then it just got gutted, so now we're relying on the Senate bill, which is, it's much better than what the governor proposed, but it's, like I said, only solves about 1/5 of the problem.
Commissioner Edwards?
Anything coming from the reduction in SNAP? Are you guys planning on, dealing with that issue through some kind of a free lunch program or?
I know that they're trying to do free
I
meals
think the
for all.
state transitioned from, well, because of the federal guidelines changing from all meals being free in our schools to community eligibility. And so in our district right now, we have some schools where breakfast and lunch is free and other schools where we're operating under the old rules of students having to, or parents having to fill out paperwork to prove that they're living in poverty in order to access a free breakfast and lunch. And the state underestimated the cost of that program. And so, like right now, we're running the program, but we're not receiving funding for it. And we're supposed to get caught up later this year.
Supposedly.
Yeah, but they did have a bill to provide for free meals, but I think it died already in Washington.
Right, well, we ran out of time, but.
We could go on forever, I think.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you
having
for
us.
taking the time to meet with
Much
us, and
appreciated.
hopefully we can do it more often than in person once every 3 years.
Yeah, we'll try to make it every quarter.
Yeah.
We have Sheriff Sanders coming to our Thurston County Soups meeting on Friday, so we'll talk a lot about.
That's great,
law
yeah.
enforcement.
Yes.
I was gonna ask you, how's law enforcement working for you as far as?
Adjourn.
Oh, yeah, okay, I guess.
Adjourn.
Okay,
We gotta adjourn, we're done.
yeah, it is 3:05 PM, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.